In today's session, we will use Excel's XLOOKUP function to answer a business question. The business question in our case is from our Rossmann Sales dataset, where we want to see what is the impact of competition on the sales of different stores. Let's have a look at our data. This is our sales data where we have information about the different stores along with their sales. Note that there is no information of competition over here because the competition is in another file which we have copied in this sheet, store data. Here we have store related information and the distance from the competition and since when is the competition open. For this exercise, let's focus on the competition distance. And the question that we are going to answer now is that what is the impact of the distance from competition on sales? In other words, if there is a competitive store close by, does that impact the sales? Versus when there is no competition in the nearby location or region, does that impact sales? Do the sales go up or not? First things first, we need to make sure that we have the competition information in our sales related file so that we can work on them together. But before we do that, let's quickly check if there is any cleaning up that is needed in this file. Is there any missing value or something which has a formatting issue which we need to fix? So let's do a quick glance. So far, everything is looking good. But maybe what we can do is actually check if there are missing values by looking for blanks over here. So we can go to data and apply a filter. And here we can, for competition distance, instead of checking everything, we simply go and select blanks. And in this way, we will find out if there is any entry where we have a blank. And actually we have a few entries. So store number 291, 622 and 879, these do not have any entries for competition distance. Now this is something which we need to fix. We have a few options. One option is to delete these values. This is the simplest solution but the least recommended solution. The other solution is to fill in some values over here. And the options that we have to fill in are some mathematical numbers, some statistical numbers. So what we can do is, if I close this filter, I can get the minimum distance, maximum distance, average distance that these stores have. And that I can get simply by selecting the column and looking at the bottom of the sheet. So I can see that the average competition distance is 5,404 meters, which is 5.5 kilometers. The minimum distance is 20 meters. The maximum distance is 75,860 meters, which is 75 kilometers. If you look at it from a real world perspective, 20 meter is too close. That's like two neighboring stores. 75 kilometer is too far away. That's, in the context of Germany, could be the other side of the city. And an average of 5.5 kilometer looks like a reasonable distance for competition, and this is the value that we would like to take. So let's note this 5404, or we can say 5,400, and go back to our blank entries. And replace them with 5,400. And with this, we are ready to go ahead to the next step and apply the lookup. Now we come to our sales data, and let's create a new entry for competition distance. The formulation for XLOOKUP goes like this. You start by typing equal to and then XLOOKUP. XLOOKUP. The first parameter is just like VLOOKUP. What is it that you want to check for? We want to check for this cell number A2, which has the store ID 57. The next is, where do we want to check it? We want to check it in store data. Column A is representing the store IDs, so we want to check over here. Then after a semicolon, or in some cases a comma, depends on the version of Excel, you put in, if this value becomes true, if there is a match, then which value to pick up, and it's this one. Remember, in VLOOKUP, we actually had to specify that, okay, this is column number 1, this is column number 2, this is column number 3, this is column number 4, and we had to count from the starting of the table where is the column that we want to pick the value from. But over here in XLOOKUP, we don't have to do these counting, and we simply can pick up the column from where we want to pick up the data. And last but not least, you can actually specify, what if the entry is not here? What if store number 57's information does not exist over here? In that case, we may want to print a message, for example, no data. And then you can close the bracket and hit enter, and you can see that it is giving us 420 meter for store number 57. Let's have a look. We go to store data and we go to store number 57, and we can see that the distance is 420. So it is picking it up correctly, and in this way we can copy this formula to the rest of the cells. And here we have all the information for all the stores. Let's verify for a few more. So for example, store number 84 has a distance of 11,810. So store number 84 has 11,810, and so on and so forth. So we have filled in the data correctly. As far as XLOOKUP is concerned, we are good to go. But as far as our business question is concerned, that what is the impact of this competition distance on sales? We have some work to do. And the best way to do this is to create a pivot table where we will note down all the competition distance and correspondingly how much is the sales, the average sales for each of them. So let's do this. We go to insert, and under tables we pick pivot table, and we insert a pivot table in a new worksheet. Here from the right hand side we specify that our competition distance is what we want to have as rows. So here it will pick all the competition distances. There is a huge variety. The minimum that we see is 40 meters. That's very close. And the far away is 30 kilometers. Now let's have a look at what would be the average sales for each of this distance and see if we can find a pattern. So we take sales and bring it to values, and it makes sense to have the average. And now we see that for 40 meters, the sales average is 4,300, then 5,200, then 7,800. So it makes sense to sort this according to sales so that we can see the trend, if it's increasing or decreasing with distance. Common sense tells us that as the distances are increasing between the competition and the store, the sales will be going higher. So it means if there are two competitive stores very close to each other, maybe the competition is taking away sales and the sales would be lower. But as distance is increasing, the sales will increase. Let's see if this assumption is true or not. So we select a cell on sales and we right click. And then we sort from smallest to largest. We need to make sure that we are picking one cell of the sales column and not the heading. So let's pick this again. And now we see that for the lowest sales that we are getting is 3078, which is at a distance of 3 kilometers. Then the distance, as the sales is increasing, we see the distances sometimes decreasing and sometimes increasing. So for example, for 3.5 kilometers, our sales was lowest. And we would expect that as the distance will increase, our sales will increase, but the distance is actually lower over here. So the competition is very close, but the sales is higher. It means our initial assumption that the sales will go up with competition distance, that's not true. To make things more easy to understand, let's bucket the distances. How about we say anything between the distance of 0 to 5 kilometer is one bucket, then 5 to 10 is another, 10 to 15, 15 to 20, and so on and so forth. So let's do some grouping. For this, let's go back to our unsorted data, where we had the data sorted according to the distances, and do some grouping. We can select all the data points which are below 5 kilometer till here and right click to create a group. Let's call this group as 0 to 5 kilometer. Then everything which is between 5 and 10 kilometers, we will create another group called 5 to 10 kilometer. Our next one would be between 10 and 15. So 10 and over here, we group them to 10 to 15 kilometer. Of course, it's totally up to you. If you want to make it more fine-grained, you could have taken from 0 to 1 kilometer one group, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and then so on and so forth. For the purpose of this exercise, we are going for distances of or buckets of 5 kilometer each. So the next one is 15 to 20. And you right click and create a group and rename this to 15 to 20, and let's put everything else in the same bucket, 20 plus. Now let's see, if we collapse all of these, we will have something in front of us at a glance. And let's see, if we now sort it according to sales, do we see a pattern here? And this pattern is actually very clear. So we can see that anything between 5 kilometer, that anything which has or any store which has a competition within 5 kilometer, their sales is lowest. And if the competition is between 5 to 10 kilometer, then we get a bit more sales, and so on and so forth, 15 to 20, and then 10 to 15. But this is now counterintuitive. So initially it seemed like as the distance is increasing, the sales is increasing as well. But this reversed over here. When the distance became too large, then actually the distance of the competition did not make sense. Now this is something which needs further exploration, because this is something which we noticed in very fine-grained data as well, that when we were looking at raw data with all the distances, there was no pattern and distance was not impacting. Now when we have bucketed the data in larger groups, we still see no pattern. So there is no evidence that the presence of a competition close to a store increases or decreases sales. And in this way, we have answered the business question, how does the competition impact the sales of different stores of Rossmann? We saw that our competition information was in a different file and our sales information was in a separate data set or a sheet or a file. We combine them using XLOOKUP and then use pivot tables to generate aggregated data and identify the impact of competition on sales.